Hi, my name is Arkady Yadgorov, and I'd like to show you a series of cases in which I implanted the I-stent Infinite into eyes with previous failed trabecular MIGS. The first case is a patient who's had a previous failed Hydrus stent, and you can see here there's an area broad band of PAS completely obstructing the inlet. Since there's no room to implant these I-stents to the left of the Hydrus, as you can see here, I'm taking a look. I put all three I-stent Infinites to the right. With this last implantation, the I-stent actually does not leave the trocar. And what's nice is I have as many clicks as I need to get that I-stent into proper position. And here I'm just visualizing the three stents in good position next to an obstructed Hydrus. This next case is an interesting one in that this patient had a very protuberant postoperative inflammation that caused PAS to not only occlude the Hydrus inlet, but it also peaked the pupil, as you can see there. After making my 1.5 millimeter incision and injection of viscoelastic, visualization of that Hydrus inlet confirms that substantial amount of PAS. And here I feel like there is some space to the left of the Hydrus to get one I-stent in. And then in order to allow more visualization of trabecular mesher to the right of the stent, I make a second paracentesis incision, turn the microscope. I'm still using my right hand, but now I'm getting much more visualization of trabecular meshwork to the right of that occluded Hydrus, which allows easier implantation of the I-stent into the canal. This next case is actually very interesting in the fact that the approach is completely different than the previous two. I'm sitting at the nasal side of the eyeball, so I'm actually sitting on the other side of the eye than we're usually used to. And so this is a nasal incision, about 1.5 millimeters. And after viscoelastic injection, I using an indirect mirror to just take a look at the nasal angle, which is where the previous Hydrus was. And you can see here that the Hydrus was malpositioned. It's downward onto the iris with PAS to it, and you'll see in a moment here the leading edge of the Hydrus actually popped out of the canal. So this is obviously a malpositioned Hydrus and wasn't really helping the eye. So I'm going to be injecting into the temporal angle. And you can see here that the first I-stent does not actually get into the canal because I was not dimpling enough. And after rethreading, again, I can click as many times as I need. In this case, I click a second time and push a little further into the canal and get it seated better. Overall, this approach is nice in the fact that you don't have any stents in the way. So as you're sitting nasal to the eye, you have the entire temporal angle to work with. And it facilitates wider spacing of the I-stent Infinites. This next case is different in the fact that this is an eye that's had a previous I-stent inject, and this generation was prior to the I-stent inject W, so you can see that the phalanges are a lot smaller, especially in comparison there with the larger flange of the I-stent Infinite. Since these I-stent injects are a lot smaller, they take up less real estate, so it is easier to space out the I-stents, and there's just more trabecular meshwork to work with. And so this eye has 5 stents, 5 trabecular stents, 3 that are fresh and new, and 2 that previously failed. Lastly, this is a case in which this patient had received the generation 1 I-stent. It failed, and the patient was back on drops. And similar to the previous case, there's plenty of trabecular meshwork to treat here. And so this is unique here, in fact, that the I-stent looks like it's in, but it's not. It's actually floating in front of the trabecular meshwork. And again, a major advantage of the I-stent Infinite handpiece over the Inject is that you can rethread and click as many times as you need to get that I-stent in. And there goes the third stent. And so here's an eye that has the I-stent Infinite 3-stent injection in an eye that had a previous G1 I-stent. Thanks for watching.